All right, ladies and gentlemen, if you're not in the top 1% of real estate agents in your marketing, it's probably because your marketing is not where it needs to be. Stay tuned next as we introduce the Chief Marketing Officer at eXp Realty, Courtney Chakarun. Coming up next. Real estate agents, are you struggling with the day-to-day grind, dialing for dollars, putting in hours of floor time with little to show for it? Are you looking for tips, tricks, and tactics to accelerate your career as an agent that will have you closing more homes, working with more clients, and earning more money than ever before? Hi, my name's Cliff Freeman, and I've spent the past 2 decades of my real estate career running one of the top brokerages in DFW and personally coaching over 1,000 high-performing real estate professionals across North America. I created this podcast to share the strategies and tactics you need to explode your real estate business. I guarantee it. Of course, we guarantee it. Do we not, C3?
We always do.
Yeah,
yes, sir.
welcome. My illustrious partner in crime and co-host. Good to see you, my friend.
Hey, great to be here.
And back in the cockpit, none other than the infamous, or most famous, I don't want to say infamous, Travis Giles. How you doing, sir?
I'm great, man. How about yourself?
Man,
Always a pleasure.
It sure is good to be. We're COVID bound to some degree, and it's great to get back in the studio again, and great to hear you. In fact, talking about things kind of coming around, is today's kind of a special day, isn't it? I mean, what do they do? It's NBA Day or something, right?
It's almost like Christmas Day for me because I'm such a big basketball fan.
Okay.
So this is like opening the presents. You know what I mean? First thing in the morning.
Oh man, that is special. Yeah.
Season opener for the NBA today, later tonight.
That's right. They've had a couple of preseason. That was a very short preseason, wasn't it?
I'd say so.
Yeah. Well, that's great. Well, I'll tell you one thing the NBA does very well, and that's marketing. Wouldn't you agree?
For sure.
I would. They do.
And if you're a real estate agent, you're in the right place at the right time right now, because we're going to bring on Courtney Chakarun, and this young lady is absolutely a rock star in the marketing business. Let's welcome her to the show. Courtney, how are you?
Great. Pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me on.
We are so excited. I said at the very beginning of the show, I talked about how important marketing is here. And, in our business, it's not the best real estate agent that wins. It's just not. It's the best marketer. 100%. And so a lot of people overlook that part of their business. But, your background, you have such a deep, deep background in marketing. And you've seen it from all the way from the corporate level, and now here back, down, you've got all these boots on the ground here, and everybody's got their different marketing and stuff going on. You've got an incredible job ahead of you here to bring this all together as the new Chief Marketing Officer at eXp.
I could not be more excited. I mean, it's such a great group of people to work with. And I think about all of these great marketers. I feel like I'm at home already.
Well, tell us a little bit. I kind of want to go, people enjoy our show because we have great guests, number one, but we also kind of go a little bit further and try to go a little bit deeper with folks, and because we like for our audience to get to know the guest as a person. Tell us a little bit about the young Courtney. Where did you grow up, and what was life like when you were small?
I will tell you, I'm from Arkansas. So Fayetteville, Arkansas, and it's interesting. I spent my first at least 20 years there, and a story I like to say is that if you were to take and put like a pin in the map of my mother's home, I was within, kindergarten, grade school, high school, undergrad, and MBA within about a mile to 2 miles radius of that. So I sure do like being in Arkansas, and when I graduated, I ended up working for GE and kind of moving along. But one of my favorite stories of growing up in Arkansas is really having a paper route. That was my first job. And it's something that was funny because the entire family got really involved in me having this paper route. And so we all started splitting it up. It became a family thing. So very fond memories of being there in my family paper route.
Wow. Well, so you had the entrepreneur DNA already cooking at a young age, huh?
I did. I actually was also getting some of the other neighborhood children involved so we could kind of parse it out. So I liked the idea of having other people with me at the same time.
Well, that's very interesting. So tell us, when did you have that zero moment of truth where you said, it's marketing, that's my calling? When did that happen?
That I'll tell you, it happened in Washington, D.C. So I'm really glad I love that. I love the term zero moment of truth because it is. There's a moment where you have this epiphany, right? And I had an undergrad degree, and I was really kind of finishing that. I was probably my junior year, and I was looking more at kind of political science, liberal arts, communication. And I thought, I want to go to DC. I had worked in a number of campaigns locally for state senators, and I was very interested in how politics worked. So my junior year, I essentially took off and moved to DC to work for a congressman. And while I was up there, I don't know if you ever watched C-SPAN, that was really big. And I noticed whenever you were visiting the House or the Senate, on which I was doing tours of, that you would have these congressmen and women that were providing a tremendous amount of content and delivering it in a very impassioned way. But if you actually went there, they were giving it to a completely empty office in terms of there was obviously a video on them. And I started thinking, this is just not what I envisioned. And the more I looked at it, the more I realized a lot of what you see in politics is marketing. I don't think we're surprised by that, right? And I came back immediately and changed my degree to marketing. So it was a real moment of truth when I went to DC and started figuring out this is how it works. It's not what you think, it's how you make other people feel and how you share that message. And that really resonated with me.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned that. It's kind of interesting to see now that politicians have actually started reading business books. Like I know that the handbook for a lot of them is called Spin Selling, right? How to put your spin on whatever is going on. So tell us, so you have this illustrious career with GE, and then you go on and you get your feet into the real estate business with Corelogic, and then you get pulled away to go into a startup where a small company that manages a throughput of $35 billion worth of mortgage business and so forth. And each place along the way, you marked your spot, you left your brand, your own personal brand. You have a touch on all of that. How did you realize, or how did it come to you that EXP was going to be a good fit?
It's interesting when I think about, the journey of your career. It's easier to kind of look back and think, okay, here was the narrative of how I got here. But, you and I both know, it doesn't always work that way. There were a couple of what I would consider to be threads through my career that were important to me. One of them was I was very interested in the concept of digital marketing and how quickly you could test things and change things. So, you think about that as one of the pillars of things that I'm passionate about in technology at large. My father, growing up, was a builder. So the first two homes I lived in, 15 years in each one, or I guess 15 and 5, were built by my father. I would go in there with my mother and we would pick out things. And so I had a general inclination or kind of draw towards real estate and housing. And then, if you take a look at marketing, it became a passion. Like I mentioned in DC, a light switch went off for me. And what I found is going through my career, I kept leaning into this. And there was another, I would say, undercurrent of consumer finance. How do you afford these things? How do you get people into the right homes? What I found is after working for a credit card business in G Capital, right, going to Corelogic and working in property data, both these have a lot of digital attributes to them. Going to a startup and working in mortgage. EXP, when I started talking to Glenn and Jason and Jeff, it was combining all my favorite things, is the best way of putting it. It is, it's property, it's technology, it just really is one of the most interesting places I've ever come to know. And it did not take long for me to go from interested to, I would say, almost obsessed with it. So I couldn't be happier to be here, but it's a bit of a journey. And I would say it brought together my favorite things.
That's awesome. I want to just go down a little path here with that, because we had Michael Valdez on the show about 3 weeks ago. Wonderful guy, new head of international, and man, we're so excited to have both of you, on board with us here. But I asked Michael if I were a fly on the wall. I said, "Can you tell me a little bit about how that interview went with Glenn and the board, or how did you guys meet?" And he said, "Well, we met at Inman, but we had to go under the radar, so we met at some little Mexican food place and stuff." I'm just out of curiosity, where did you guys interview, or where did you interview with EXP?
I think that's part of the most interesting part of the story. We started talking in April, so we're knee deep in obviously a pandemic. I actually did not see Glenn's face until this morning. So it happened to be because we were testing out a shared feature within Frame and VirBELLA that allowed him to video cast to me for a second this technology, and I saw him. And it didn't actually strike me until an hour or so after, wow, that's the first time I've actually seen one. It is really an interesting phenomenon, but I started talking to them in April. I signed an offer in EXP world as an avatar. I had all of my interviews that way. And so it's fascinating. Now you got April, you got May, you got June. I mean, this is about 4 months, right? And it didn't occur to me literally until an hour ago that I had just seen him for the first time. I think that shows, one, how powerful this platform is, right? And how connected this company is to be able to work this way, and the community that he's really built. But in a way, if you told me, 5, 10, I mean, even a couple of years ago that I would join a company of this magnitude as an avatar, I'm not sure I would have been able to wrap my head around it. And now I just can't imagine anything different.
Glenn has been such a visionary. Obviously, he skates where the puck is going, not where it's been, right? But who would have thought that there could have been a more perfect storm, shall we say, for VirBELLA and EXP as a totally cloud-based company, to exist in this type, not only exist, but thrive in this type of environment. I mean, if you look at growth, our numbers are off the charts. Other brokerages, I mean, I think RE/MAX as an entire company was net +4 agents for 2019. I mean, we've really done an incredible job. So that's what's really exciting here, is to have you here now and get us to the next level. I think C3, you had a question.
So to kind of piggyback off of what we've been talking about, coming to EXP, you yourself have a ton of experience in marketing, specifically more into the branding and rebranding side of the business. Why is that so important as you kind of venture in, especially as we get to the year end and then potentially starting next year? What does that mean, and why is that so important?
Branding is really important on a number of fronts, but I like to think of branding is what people think about you before they see you or before you enter the room, how people talk about you, right? It's your reputation, and it really means everything. And, you take a look at some of the different brands out there that are powerful, they speak for themselves. And I think, when you take a look at this company and the great assets that it has, being able to really shore up the value that we're adding with the appearance and the narrative is extremely important. It really comes down to reputation, and this company has a great reputation, and therefore being able to connect the brand to that and elevate it is really of the utmost importance.
Very nice. Yeah. I mean, that's right on. You hit the nail on the head with that one, Courtney. So segueing into my next question, what kind of advice would you have for leaders and how they manage their personal brand with their real estate business? Is there any kind of piece that you could give somebody about that, about what they could do?
Absolutely. I think it extends to real estate agents, and I think it extends in large, because it's really important to be self-aware. And if you were to ask somebody a question, just kind of cold, what's your brand? I think a person might take a beat and go, I don't even know how to answer that, right? It's kind of like, what's your leadership style? Unless you're thinking about it and conscious of it, it's not something that you necessarily think about on a regular basis. So the advice that I would have is you need to be very self-aware. You need to understand what your brand is. And if you don't understand what your brand is, really easy to figure it out. This is really not that complicated, especially from a personal branding perspective. My advice is this: get 10 people, maybe more, maybe less, but somewhere around 10. And these need to be people that you've met through different stages of your life, right? In different capacities, whether it be a mentor, someone you work for, someone who works on your team, someone in your family. The most important thing when you select these people, pick people that you know that are going to really shoot you straight. Somebody who's going to be brutally honest, right? Candor. And you need to ask them one question. And with no context, that's the important part. You can even send them an email and just say, give me 3 words that come to mind when you think of me. You get those 3 words back, right? And you compare those across all the 10 people that have known you through different stages of your life in different ways, if you will. And you will find out some things that are pretty interesting. There will be a common thread or theme, right? And there'll be some things that don't necessarily make a lot of sense. You want to take a look at that and analyze it. Is the common theme, like for instance, people typically say I have a lot of energy. I have a high RPM. I talk fast, I think fast, I get excited about meeting people. So this concept of energy or energetic is typically built into what people say about me. And that's something that is authentically me. I couldn't change that if I wanted to, so, I guess I'm stuck with that, right? But there are attributes that you can change. So if you look at that set of words and you go, oh, I don't particularly like this one, right? Maybe it's that, around listening, things of that nature. People that are high energy may not always be the most bestest listeners. Those are the sorts of things that you can tweak and change. So my advice to people are get really thoughtful about your brand, own it. And if you need to really reflect and change it, ask yourself, is it something I can change? I can talk a little slower, but I can't be less enthusiastic. Like, I'm stoked about being here right now, but there are other areas that you can work on, and that's my recommendation.
Okay. So that's really interesting. So strategically, I mean, that's a great strategy. You've got to be intentionally strategic about managing your brand, right? Mm-hmm. Let's help some of our audience out here understand some of the tactics you might suggest. There's a lot of different media that people use. What media has the highest ROI for an agent? Where should people really start to get the biggest bang for their buck?
That is a great question. And it's interesting because about a week and a half ago, I did a survey and over 2,400 agents completed the survey. And I was asking just that question. I was trying to understand, you really want to go where your audience is. It's really important to know your audience. And here's why. How are you possibly going to connect with a message and in the right channel if you don't know who your audience is, right? So the first thing is, taking, I'd say, like a little bit of a step, maybe back or pause for a moment and go, who is my audience? Where are they? What's the most important thing to them? And I actually asked the agents of this company, I asked them a few questions that I knew were going to be potentially painful for me to hear the answers to, but I really needed to know. I asked them what they thought about the brand. I asked them what they thought was the most important marketing asset to have, right, to get to their audience. And I also asked them for attributes of what we stood for. And there was a lot of themes here, but the one thing that really stuck with me is that social media and shareables was one of the number one ways that people view that they can connect with people, because it can be authentically yours, right? I know we will be broadcasting this live, right, through social media. So I think it does change based on your audience, and it can change based on where we are right now. It's like we can go to an event right now. So, if I had to pick it based on the data I have and what I know about the audience that real estate agents are focused on, social media is a really compelling place to start working and putting your energy towards.
Okay. So I'm going to shift gears a little bit here because we don't have a lot of time and there's some things I really want to get to. I want to talk about your philosophy here at eXp. We can look at other companies like Compass, great company. Their branding, the agent's branding seems to come after the Compass brand. And you see a lot of Compass first and then the agent. What's your philosophy here at eXp about how the personal brand of the agent and the corporate brand are going to work together?
Absolutely. I can sum it up. The agent brand is hero. Our brand, which around eXp, it should be kind of in the background. It should be supporting and it should be complementary. But the hero brand, that's the brand that should really resonate, should stand out, is your brand. That's why people are buying homes. I mean, if you think about why someone buys a home, including myself, it's driven by the agent. It's driven by those personal relationships and how people connect. And that's what's the most important. So the philosophy is we've got to figure out how to support agent marketing, right? That's really key, and the agent brand. And when we look at, our brand, does it do that? Those are the sorts of questions I'm trying to ask and correct for. That's part of the philosophy. The second part of the philosophy is to listen and be data driven. I easily speak to one or two agents a day to try to understand and thematically figure out where we can pick, what I'd say our MBA term, our best shots, right? To be able to add value from a marketing perspective. And that has to do with listening. I know, Cliff, when you and I met a couple of weeks ago, it was a eye-opening. We were seeing each other, we were talking, and it was very energetic in terms of the feedback that you had, which was around marketing. And being able to get that feedback was critical. So when I take these one-on-one conversations, right, which probably maybe 50 of them, and then I do research that can quantify, statistically speaking, what people want to see in a brand, what they think of the marketing center, what are the key attributes of the brand, as well as how does that connect to marketing materials. Listening and research and data is in partnership, right, with being able to present your brand in the best possible light. Our around EXP support that.
Well, and that makes perfect sense because you guys are going to have access to a lot of data. And the challenge that most real estate agents have is they really don't have a way to track the ROI on marketing and branding. It's very difficult to see how many new clients a billboard is going to bring you, or if it's just a matter of image branding where you're trying to, get your image out there further. So to have the science behind what you're doing combined with what the agents are doing, to me, is just explosive. I mean, that's what we have been lacking as soldiers down here, is we haven't had the intelligence behind what we're doing, which it sounds like you're going to be able to bring to the table.
Absolutely. I mean, we have been able to quantify the impact of the brand in the current state, which is basically a baseline. How is the brand adding value or detracting, right? And how is it doing that from a perspective of agent attraction, as well as being able to be successful with clients? And it'll be very exciting to see as we progress along this journey. It's a very different journey. In my entire career of marketing, I've never approached a brand in the way we are going to approach it. It's very agent centric. And what we're going to be doing around getting voice of agent to build this brand is going to be, I think, phenomenal. And I think it's part of our secret sauce, right?
Yeah. And I'm going to go back to, I bring this up all the time to agents because they don't believe me, but every year the NAR does a survey of buyers and sellers. And if you look in chapter 7 and you look at exhibit, the graph, it's not a graph, it's actually a table, 7.6, I believe is the one, where they ask sellers, why did you hire the agent that you did? The first answer was integrity, or it was a referral from a friend, a colleague, or family member. I trusted the agent. The agent was honest. It's not until you got down way toward the bottom where only 3 out of 100, Courtney, sellers said that they hired the agent because of the franchise. Okay, so what you said is 1,000% correct. The franchise brand and branding has never been consumer focused. It's always been focused at agents, because if you ask anybody out on the street that is buying or selling a house, the difference between Keller Williams, Compass, Coldwell Banker, and Century 21, they couldn't tell you any differences. Only agents can do that. So
Completely
that's
agree.
what your depth of understanding, this is what gets me fired up. I'm pretty fired up right now.
Fired up, Mr.
This is
Freeman.
what gets me fired up, is that you understand that, and that's what's so cool. That's why I'm so excited about the future of the marketing and branding that we have here to look forward to. All right. There were some other things I want to get to, and just in deference to time, I'm going to just kind of jump around here a little bit. I want to go back to Courtney. And Courtney, I'd like to ask you, what was the biggest aha moment that you've had in your marketing career?
The biggest aha moment I've had is kind of like what gets you here there, right? I think we are in a very different phase of growth right now. And I can tell you, the playbook I've had at GE, at Corelogic, at startup, it's not the playbook I have now. So you have to be extraordinarily agile in your thinking. You have to listen, you have to learn, and you have to adapt, right? And so the aha moment I have is, it's not really necessarily, obviously there's experience that can be applied, but it's really looking at each situation to figure out what's unique about it and how can you really make a mark? Can you, like I said, hit that shot and make something successful for the agents and for the company?
Right. Well,
that's my aha.
Yeah, I mean, we all know, if you look at the most successful agents, the producers that just kill it, they have mastered the marketing piece. Yep. And that's why they win all the time. All right, a little bit more about Courtney. You have you're married. You have a wonderful. Do you guys? Is it just you and your husband? Do you have anybody else in the family?
I have a stepdaughter who's actually going to the University of Arizona. We're going to be, depending on how things go, she's going to be going next month.
Oh,
so,
wonderful!
I am in her room right now because she's not here. I've turned this into my office, so I don't know if that talks to my work-life balance. I'm kind of multi-purposing a lot of the things we have in our house. This is my layer, and my husband's working upstairs.
Yeah, well, that's what, you just led into what I was going to ask you, which is, how do you manage that work-life balance, especially with this crazy COVID stuff that's going on?
Not very well. That's the way of putting it. Not very well. The reality is, I think people have to give themselves a break. I think they have to kind of, deal with what's happening right now. And there's a condition that happens where, whether you have a conversation you're spending having now, where you can finish that conversation and you can kind of ruminate. Did I say the right thing? Did I do the right thing? Like, you can really have this. I don't know if you've ever had this track that plays right after a conversation. You got to give yourself a break, right? Stop replaying a track. Move on with your life and be the best version you can, right? So if I think about, how am I trying to build these things? And one, I'm giving myself a bit of a break. I had lunch yesterday at 4 p.m. and it was nachos. That's what it is, right? So, you want to eat nachos. And then a couple hours later, I hadn't moved around and I had a meeting with RJ, who's in our financial services area, obviously with IR. He's got a really big job. I said, can you just call me on my cell phone? I really need to walk. I got on the treadmill and took the call with him from the treadmill so that I could actually move around. And so I think it's really, there's not a balance. That's a fallacy. It's basically, how do you coordinate your life? Because I think you've got to kind of have some trade-offs, right? I don't think balance is really a possibility for me right now. It's just, how do I incorporate the two?
What about time management on a scale of 1 to 10? How would you rate yourself in terms of time management?
I would give myself a solid 8.5, right? But that comes down to priorities. I have a set of priorities, and before I go to bed at night, I think about, like, what is the most important thing for me to get done tomorrow, right? You really have to know, like, what do you have to get done? Because the day is going to throw you a bunch of curveballs, right, as you go through it. So make sure you know exactly what you need to do and have a game plan going into each day. Know that it's probably going to be completely thrown off, but you should at least be able to focus on one major priority a day. And the other thing I would mention is I try to put in about 30 minutes between each of my meetings, and here's why. Most of my meetings don't start on time and they don't end on time. And I don't want to, short sheet something and not finish a conversation. So that's another thing that I build in.
Did you ever read the book, Eat That Frog?
No, I have to put that one down. What does that say?
That's a writer downer. It's a good one. It talks about starting your day with tackling the toughest projects and just getting those knocked out first, and then the rest of your day is golden. And if you get up and get into the office, get started before the phone starts blowing up and stuff, there's a lot that you can get done in that hour or so when it's just you, right? And you're fresh and you're just ready to go tackle it. Well, that's awesome. I got one more question for you, Courtney, and then unfortunately we're getting close to the end of our allotted time here. But what do you want to leave for your legacy? What are people going to say about you down the road here?
I want them to say, and whether it be about the company or about an individual, that I helped that company or that individual realize its potential. I think what brings me the most joy is seeing people be successful. And that's what I want my legacy to be.
Well, that's awesome. I got to say one thing. You said, I believe you report directly to Jeff and Glenn, I believe, right? I just want to say one thing about our board and our leadership is we got some damn good people pickers here at EXP, don't we?
Sure do. I'll tell you what.
I don't know where they are resourceful, come up with some of the best talent
They're on top
I've ever seen. Yeah. So we are so excited to have you here. Is there anything that Courtney, that I didn't ask you that I should have? Is there anything you'd like to share on the show that nobody else knows about you?
I think what I would share is it's important, like you said, to kind of start your day with some intention. Like the book you mentioned, that's how I take it. And if you start your day with intention and you try to leave the world a better place, I think it's important to try to be positive. There's certain times during the day where I just have to go, okay, I need a timeout, right? Let me give myself a timeout to reset and be positive because, I go back to the conversation you and I had a few weeks ago. And it may sound strange for me to say this, but after that meeting, I felt like someone had given me a hug. I felt pumped. I just felt like, wow, this is going to be great. And I think that impression you have and how you spread that energy around in a positive way is extremely important. So if you find yourself kind of getting in a funk, take a time out, right? And make sure you get back on track before you impact someone else's day, because energy and positive energy connect.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. We're big fans of Zig Ziglar, and gratitude in your attitude, defeats fear and everything else that's not good. Well, thank you again so much. Just look forward to the next months to see your plans, unroll here, and we're behind you and support you 1,000%. And again, we're so excited as a group and a company to have you steering us through the marketing channels here. It's great to have you on the show today, Courtney.
Thank you. And thank you for putting your trust in me. I'm honored, and I couldn't be more excited.
Well, thank you. All right, guys, I'll tell you what, that's powerful right there. If you didn't have a few writer-downers in that. Thank you, Courtney, again. Marketing, guys, remember, that's number one. Hey, I got a little shout-out to my buddy Tony Geary. Tony was in the studios earlier today. He was a guest on a show, I believe. We love Tony. He's a great coach. We've been to his results center many times. You need to, if you don't know Tony, you need to look him up and meet him. He's wonderful. He's changed a lot of people's lives.
Fun fact, he actually told me that the book will make us more handsome as
well.
well.
The book make you more handsome?
Exactly.
Oh,
I'm excited to read it at this point.
Make you lose weight? I tell you, it'll cure whatever ails you. This book right here, it's called Results Faster by Tony Geary, and he's a great friend of ours and a good guy. So, Trelvis, a pleasure always. My friend, you make life great for us. We really appreciate you, man.
Great show as usual.
All right. I hope your team wins tonight.
I hope they do as well.
All right. And we got a little cool thing we're going to end with here. Let's let it roll. You ready for this, Trey?
I am. Let's go.
Let's hit it. All right, folks. Tune in to Cliff's Notes every Thursday at 1 o'clock Central for the tips, tricks, and tactics to explode your business. I